This happened back in 2013, so even all these years later, I remember almost every detail of that night. Which honestly says something on its own, because whilst ordinary nights from when I was 15 have blurred together by now, this one hasn't blurred at all. My brother was 12, I was 15, and we were close in that specific way siblings get when there's only a few years between you and you've basically grown up doing everything together. My mom texted me that afternoon saying to come home early from school because we had a wedding function to attend that evening, some relatives event, the kind of thing that runs late into the night with relatives you only half remember the names of. I didn't want to go. I had a better plan already forming the second I read her text. Me and my brother staying home instead, just the two of us, no homework pressure, no boring function, our own night. I texted her back saying we'd come home, finish our homework, and just stay in instead of coming to the function, and she said that was fine. My parents left the house around 5:30 that evening, both dressed up, my mom doing that thing moms do where she reminds you to lock the door twice before she's even fully out of it. We said bye at the gate and watched them drive off. Once they were gone, I called over my friend group, Anna, Jimmy, and Jack. We were a mixed group. All of us hung out together regularly, though Anna specifically was someone I knew through the group more than one-on-one. Friendly, but not close in the way you'd tell each other everything. We ordered burgers, picked a movie, set up in the living room the way you do on any normal hangout night. Lights low, phones charging, the usual comfortable mess of a group of teenagers with a house to themselves. I noticed Anna going quiet maybe half an hour in. Not the normal kind of quiet where someone's just absorbed in the movie. This was different, more like she'd stepped half out of the room mentally while her body stayed on the couch. She kept glancing toward the hallway every so often, quick little looks, like she was checking on something none of the rest of us could see. I asked if she was okay, and she said, yeah, fine, just tired, and gave me this smile that didn't really reach the rest of her face. I let it go, because what else are you going to do? Push a friend who says she's fine. It happened again about 20 minutes later. She went rigid for a second mid-sentence, stopped talking entirely, stared at a spot on the wall near the hallway entrance for maybe 3 or 4 seconds too long, before snapping back and finishing her sentence like nothing happened. Jimmy didn't notice. Jack didn't either. I noticed because I happened to be looking right at her when it happened, and it left this small, cold unease in my stomach that I didn't have a name for yet. A while after that, she said she needed to use the bathroom and got up. I walked with her part way down the hallway out of habit more than anything else, and waited outside while she went in, leaning against the wall, the rest of the group's laughter and the audio from the movie drifting faintly behind me. That ordinary background noise that makes everything feel safe until it suddenly doesn't. A couple minutes passed before I started hearing something through the door. Quiet at first, just a texture of sound I couldn't place, like static or breath. I almost dismissed it. Then it sharpened into actual words, her voice, small and pleading. Please don't do it. Just that. No reply audible to me. No second voice, nothing I could point to and say that's who she's talking to. Just her, alone in there, begging something not to do whatever it was apparently about to do. I knocked, said her name and asked if she was okay, told her to come out, but nothing. I stood in that hallway completely by myself, the rest of the group still laughing at something in the living room, oblivious, no idea anything was happening 20 feet away from them. And I got no answer for what felt like a genuinely long stretch of time. The house felt different in that hallway in a way I can't fully explain. Colder maybe, or just quieter than a house with 4 extra people in it should feel. I leaned in closer, pressed my ear right against the door trying to figure out if she was actually okay, because by that point almost 10 minutes had passed and the silence after the whispering felt worse than the whispering it had been. That's what finally got me to go grab the others instead of just standing there guessing. We all came back together and called her name this time as a group, and the door opened almost immediately, and there she was, completely fine, smiling, asking if we'd been scared, saying she was just messing with us, playing a prank. We laughed it off the way you do, called her an idiot, the relief of it making the whole thing feel smaller than it actually was. I remember laughing along with everyone else while some part of me sat there thinking, that crying didn't sound like a performance. People can fake a lot of things, but the specific exhausted quiet of that crying didn't sound like something done for a joke. We headed back downstairs after that, me flipping off the hallway light behind everyone as they went down ahead of me. And as I stepped on the stairs myself, alone for that 1 second, I heard the bathroom door creak open again behind me. The same door we'd just all walked away from, now opening on its own with nobody anywhere near it. I froze on that step, didn't turn around at first. When I finally made myself look back, the door was open maybe 6 inches further than we'd left it, hallway light from downstairs barely reaching that far, just enough to see the gap and nothing past it. I told myself the latch was probably loose, old house, doors do that. I went down anyway, faster than I meant to, and didn't mention it to anyone. We finished the movie not long after that, and around 9 the group started getting ready to leave. I walked them out to the gate to see them off, my brother already asleep on the couch by then, completely out, the way younger kids just drop off mid-evening sometimes. Jimmy and Jack said their normal goodbyes and headed off down the street together. Anna lingered just a second longer than the other two, turned back toward me at the gate and said, "Be careful, all of you." I just looked at her. There was no all of you left in that house. My brother was inside asleep, I was standing right there at the gate. There was no group anymore for her sentence to actually apply to. I almost asked what she meant, but something in her face when she said it made me not want to ask, like asking would mean getting an answer I didn't want. I just said okay, good night, and shut the gate. Back inside, it was just me and my brother in the living room, both of us back on our phones, talking about nothing important. The ordinary low-key wind down of a night that was almost over. Then we heard it, a door, upstairs, opening. That specific sound a door makes when it's pushed rather than blown, deliberate rather than accidental. My brother started to get up, said he'd go check, and I told him to wait, stay exactly where he was, don't go up there. I don't know what made me so certain in that moment that he shouldn't go, just that it felt like the only thing I was sure of. I called my mom right then, told her everything was fine, but that something didn't feel right, asked her to come home. After that call, the house went completely silent. No more sounds from upstairs, nothing. Just the two of us sitting there in a quiet that felt thicker than normal quiet somehow, waiting. My parents got home around 10:20 and asked what had happened. I tried to lay it all out for them. Anna's strange stillness earlier in the night, the whispering through the bathroom door, "Please don't do it." Her crying that didn't sound like a joke even though she'd played it off as one. The bathroom door creaking open on its own after we'd all left it. Her parting line at the gate that only made sense if she thought there were more of us in that house than there actually were. And then the door upstairs opening on its own while it was just me and my brother. Said out loud like that, one after another like that, it sounded like far too much to be coincidence, even though each piece on its own in the moment felt like something small enough to explain away. We checked the whole house together that night, all 4 of us, top to bottom. Nothing was out of place, nothing missing, every window locked the way it should have been. Our house has always been the safest place I know, the one place I never had to think twice about, and there was something deeply unsettling about walking through it that night specifically, looking for something, anything, and finding nothing at all. A few days later, word came back through mutual friends that Anna had been seen at school during a break period, out near the trees behind the building, talking to someone who wasn't there. Not on a phone, not to anything herself in any casual mumbling way, actually holding what looked like a full conversation, pausing like she was listening to replies, out loud, alone, with empty space. That's when people in our group started saying she'd been possessed, that something had attached to her, and the more it got repeated, the more it didn't sound exaggerated to me anymore. It sounded like the only explanation that actually fit everything I'd personally seen and heard that night. I think about that bathroom door more than almost anything else from that whole year. What exactly she was begging something not to do in a room I knew for a fact had only had her in it alone, with no one else who could have been on the other end of that conversation. I slept in my mom's room for a long time after that night, longer than I ever admitted to my friends. And even now, there are certain quiet hallways, certain doors left open just slightly more than I left them, that I still can't walk past with my whole body tensing before my mind even catches up to why.
My friends dropped me off at my mom's place a little after midnight, late December, the kind of cold where your breath hangs in front of you for a second before it disappears.
She was overseas for work that week, some conference thing, and since it's just her and me, never knew my dad, never really missed having one either, I had the house to myself, which was normal. I'd done it plenty of times before. I didn't think twice about it. I'd had a few drinks at my friend's birthday thing, not wasted, just loose enough that my hands weren't quite cooperating. I remember standing at the front door fishing my keys out of my bag and the porch light catching the breath fogging up in front of me and feeling that specific kind of dizzy where the ground tilts a little if you move your head too fast. I dropped the keys once on the doormat, picked them up, got the door open, locked it behind me, both locks, out of habit more than anything. The second the door clicked shut, I remember this wave of relief, that warm, okay, I'm home, I made it, feeling you get when you're a little drunk and a little tired and the night's finally over. The house was dark the way it always is when no one's home. Not creepy dark, just empty dark. Familiar shapes of furniture you don't need light to recognize because you've lived there your whole life. I went straight to the kitchen, flipped the light on, grabbed a water bottle from the fridge, took a tablet because I already knew I'd regret the drinks tomorrow. Standard post-party routine. I wasn't thinking about anything except how good my bed was going to feel. That's when I heard it the first time. Footsteps, upstairs, not loud, just that specific weight on old floorboard sound our house makes whenever someone's walking around up there. I didn't even pause. We have a cat, an indoor cat, who's never once in her life voluntarily slept on the actual bed she's allowed on. She just wanders the upstairs hallway at odd hours like she owns the place. So I just thought, there's Mochi, doing her 2 a.m. patrol thing, and kept drinking my water. I went into the downstairs bathroom, the one attached to the guest room, and took a shower, mostly to wash the smell of the party off me before bed. The water was loud enough that I couldn't have heard anything else in the house, even if I'd wanted to, which I didn't think about until later, how that's exactly the kind of window where you wouldn't notice somebody moving around in a house. When I shut the water off, in that sudden quiet right after, I thought I heard the front door. Not loudly, just that particular sound our door makes, the slight catch and release of the latch, the one I just locked myself 15 minutes earlier. I stood there in the bathroom for a second, just listening, dripping, telling myself I'd imagined it, that sounds carry weird in an empty house at 2 in the morning. I got dressed fast, faster than I needed to, and walked out toward the kitchen to check. Nothing. Empty counter, empty hallway, fridge humming the way it always does. I told myself, see, nothing, you're being paranoid, and started toward the staircase to just go to bed and stop thinking about it. Then someone knocked on the front door. I don't think I've ever felt my heart do what it did in that half second. 2 in the morning, alone, just heard a door I'd locked make a sound I couldn't explain, and now an actual knock. I stood frozen at the bottom of the stairs for what felt like way too long before I made myself walk over, hands shaking a little on the deadbolt, and asked through the door, "Who's there?" It was Jenny, my friend from a few streets over, dropping off some stuff of mine she'd grabbed at the party so I wouldn't have to deal with it tomorrow, which honestly tracks. She lives close enough that 2 in the morning isn't as insane a time for her as it sounds. We talked for a minute on the porch. She said goodnight, headed home. Totally normal. I actually felt better, like the door sound from before had probably just been her arriving outside, footsteps on the porch playing tricks on me through the walls. I went back in and locked up again, and the footsteps upstairs started almost immediately. Same weight, same rhythm, slow and even, back and forth along the hallway. I stood at the bottom of the stairs telling myself, "Cat, it's the cat. Mochi does this. This is completely normal," while some other part of my brain very quietly refused to believe a single word of it. I didn't call Jenny. I don't fully know why looking back. Maybe I didn't want to sound crazy over a cat. Instead, I flipped on the stairway light and started up, slow, one hand on the railing, telling myself I was just going to peek into the hallway and prove to myself it was Mochi and go to bed. There's a mirror at the top of our staircase, mounted on the wall facing the hall. Been there my whole life. My mom likes how it makes the upstairs feel bigger. I've walked past that mirror probably 10,000 times without thinking about it once. This time, a few steps up, I happened to glance at it just out of habit, the way you glance at any mirror you pass. And reflected in it, around the corner where the hallway bends toward the bedrooms, was a man standing perfectly still,
half pressed against the wall like he was trying to take up as much space as possible. Old, gray hair, wearing something dark, just standing there in my house, in a hallway I was about to walk into. I didn't move. I don't think I ever breathed for a second. He wasn't looking toward the stairs. He had no idea I could see him, no idea I was even on the staircase at all. That angle of the mirror only works from a couple specific steps. My mom's mentioned that before, how you can see around the bend without being seen yourself if you're standing in the wrong spot. I backed those stairs down slower and more carefully than I ever moved in my life, got to the bottom, grabbed my phone, called 911 right there in the kitchen in a whisper, and let myself out the front door as quietly as I could, locking it behind me from outside, and walked/ran to Jenny's house. Police got there maybe 20 minutes later. 3 officers went through the whole house top to bottom, while I stood outside with one of them answering questions. What did he look like? How long was he there? Did I touch anything? The other 2 came back down eventually and said they hadn't found anyone. Said my upstairs bedroom window was open. The latch looked worked at, slightly damaged, like it had been forced at or pried at some point and never quite closed right since. They said it was possible someone had gotten in through it. Used the word transient. Said it gently, the way you say something to someone you can tell is already barely holding it together. I went to my mom's room that night. I tried to sleep there, with every light in the house on, door locked, phone in my hand. I left for her actual house the next morning and didn't go back to that house alone for a long time after. I still don't know how long he'd been up there before I got home. I don't think I know if he was already inside when I locked that door with my shaking, half-drunk hands, already standing somewhere in the dark while I made myself a glass of water and told myself everything was fine. I think about that mirror more than anything else from that night, how it was just luck, just the angle of a few steps that I saw him before he ever knew I was there at all.
After my mom died, it was just me and my dad. I was 18 and I'd be lying if I said I wasn't completely attached to him. He'd raised me alone since I was a kid, handle everything, and after we lost her, he became the only steady thing left in my life. We lost her in a car accident, something tied to a part I played in that night that I still can't fully talk about, so I'll leave that alone. Things got hard fast after that. Dad lost his steady work, and between that and my college fees, money became this constant pressure sitting under everything we did. He kept telling me not to worry, that he had work, that he was handling it. But he never said what kind of work, and something in his voice when he said it made me stop asking. I'd started doing some freelance design work on the side around then too, quietly, mostly because I didn't want him feeling like he had to provide for every single thing when he was clearly already stretched thin. I hadn't told him. I'd told myself I'd bring it up once I'd actually saved something worth mentioning. One night I was home alone, around 9:40 p.m., and I ordered a pizza. Normal night. I answered the door, took the food, sat down, called my dad to ask when he'd be back. The doorbell rang again a few minutes later. I figured the delivery guy had forgotten something. I went back, asked who it was. Nothing at first, just silence on the other side, long enough that I almost asked twice. Then a voice, low and furious. "Where's your father? Where is he?" I asked why, what was going on. The voice didn't answer that. It just said, "Tell him I will never forgive him," and went quiet. No footsteps walking away that I could hear. I stood there a long minute, more unsettled by the silence than the voice itself. Around 10:30, Dad called and said he was coming home, that he needed to tell me something. I didn't push him on the phone. I wanted to see his face when I told him about the man at the door. He got home around 10:11, and I told him everything. He just said it was a small problem, that he'd handle it. No details, same as always. The next day, walking back from a friend's place nearby, I heard footsteps behind me, matching my pace almost exactly. I turned around and there was nothing. Empty road, trees, no one. I walked faster the rest of the way, telling myself I'd imagined it, and didn't think about it again until much later, after everything else happened, when it occurred to me that whoever was at our door the night before had known exactly which night I'd be home alone. I never figured out for certain if it was him following me, but I've never been able to convince myself it wasn't. I'd barely caught my breath inside when the doorbell rang again, hard and fast, already angry before the door even opened. I knew who it was.
Something had changed in me since losing my mom, some willingness to not just freeze, so instead of staying quiet, I opened the door and asked him straight, "What do you want? What's your problem?" He looked exhausted in a way that scared me more than his anger did, like a man at the end of something. He said he'd been calling my father for 2 weeks, leaving messages, going by the place he thought my dad worked, getting nothing back. No callback, no response, nothing. He said he just wanted to know if he was even going to get his money back or if my dad had been avoiding him on purpose this whole time. I told him I didn't know anything about it, that he needed to leave, and went to shut the door. That's when he grabbed my wrist to stop it from closing, and when I pulled back, he caught my throat instead, dragging me back into the front hallway, saying my father was a liar, that he'd had his money for months and kept stalling. I couldn't get a full breath in. My phone was still in my hand from texting my dad earlier, and somehow, in the panic of it, I managed to hit call instead of dropping it, and I think the line stayed open even as I lost my grip on it, because the next thing I really remember is the front door again, and my dad already moving past me toward him before I even processed that he was home. He hit him more than once, fast, before I could say anything. The man went down. Dad stood over him and said, "Get out. I'll get your money. Don't ever come back here." And he left. Not another word. We sat down once it was just us again, both of us still shaking, and I finally got the whole truth out of him. He'd taken a loan to cover my college fees when his job fell through, had been quietly struggling to pay it back ever since, dodging calls he couldn't answer because he had nothing to tell him yet. He didn't tell me any of it because he didn't want me carrying it. I told him about the freelance work then, the savings I'd been sitting on for next semester's tuition, and gave him most of it, enough to actually close it out, and told him to finish this, end it for good. I told him there was nothing in this world more important to me than him. I still don't know if that man ever came back, or if there was more to the debt than what my dad told me that night. I think about it sometimes, what those footsteps the day before actually were, whether he'd been watching the house longer than that one night. I never got an answer to that.